Is this thing on? Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. I'm Mick, your host with the most. Just ask your girlfriends and your wives. So welcome back to the Movies TV Mad Daily. This is my daily reminder that Joker Folie et Deux did not cost 200 to 300 million to produce. It's a lie to continue the pile-on onto the movie. Now, I don't know if they're leaking this at DC Studios to kind of hamper Todd Phillips's reputation, but it's a lie. It's the same lie they were saying, you know, when they weren't giving accurate, you know, streaming numbers for Zack Snyder's Justice League Snyder Cut. The same way I know that Joker Folie et Deux didn't cost 200 to 300 million to make is the same way I know that the Snyder Cut broke streaming records. I told you this at the time. Here at Movies TV Mad, you're going to get the right, accurate, truthful information. And from that information, I'm going to formulate opinions, right? And tell you what I think on the true situations going on in the DC universe and, you know, entertainment in general. This is not a place to trigger. This is not a place to wind you up and get your clicks and your views like that. I'm going to tell you what I know. I'm going to report the headlines and give you my views and opinions on those headlines. So for the final time, and you know, who started it yesterday, that Joker Folie et Deux is going to lose from 150 to 200 million. It won't, because it didn't cost that much money. It cost between 120 million to 140 million. Basically, it's going to get its money back. Whatever the case, Joker Folie et Deux is a flop. It's a flop. There's no hiding that. It's a flop I really enjoyed. Masters of the Universe is a flop I really enjoyed. Right? But I still enjoyed it. And you know, they're breaking the news now that by the end of the month, Joker Folie et Deux will be available to buy digitally. Which is great for people like us who enjoyed it. If you're watching this video and you love Joker 2, you'll get to own it earlier. Which is great. I don't care. I don't have shares in WB. I wish it was a hit for Todd Phillips, because the people crying that this betrays the Joker, that he doesn't want to be the Joker in a Joker movie, right? It's a movie about a mentally ill fantasist who took on a caricature. But it's not about the supervillain, Joker. This is what the propaganda merchants are trying to hide from you. And this was the case from the first movie. And if you don't understand that, you weren't really paying attention to the first movie or the second movie or to what Todd Phillips said from the very beginning. Right, let's put that to bed. Let's put that away, because that's not really what I want to talk about today. But I wanted to get that out there. It's very, very important. It's funny, you know, how unsuccessful this channel is. It does deliver the truth. It does deliver truthful opinions, but it's shot using a very cheap 50 quid HD camera. That's not good to make the platform successful. I don't promote the platform. I don't want to pay to advertise this platform. It's funny to see someone like Aaron Fesher become more successful and have 10K videos. I could never get a 10K video. It would be impossible. But he does. Now, I'm sure he's a lovely guy, but it makes me laugh. Next time you watch his video, notice this, how he talks really, really slowly and wastes a lot of time till he gets to the point, until he talks about the main headlines. He doesn't have the ability to actually talk about the issues and have a lot to say about the issues he's talking about, so he wastes your time at the beginning. And he's successful, and I'm not. I give up, right? Because I'm not spending money to be successful. You're either going to watch my videos and like them, or you're not. Most people don't like it because I'm shouting. I've got a loud voice. It runs in the family. If you don't like it, tough. But let's talk about the main headline. A couple of days ago, James Gunn responded to a fan question about casting Wonder Woman. The fan posted a comic book picture of Wonder Woman towering taller than Superman. So in the comics, I think she's about over 6 foot. And James Gunn, and the fan says to James Gunn, how the hell are you going to cast a woman that tall? And James Gunn says, I don't know an actress that tall. And of course, I was laughing as I read this because many months ago, James Gunn was accused of firing Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman. He tentatively, half-heartedly denied that that was true, that he was sticking with Gal Gadot. But we know that Gal Gadot isn't going to be his Wonder Woman. Gal Gadot was never going to be his Wonder Woman. I told you this at the time when he half-heartedly, tentatively denied he was removing her. So I want to talk about other things with James Gunn and DCU as well. I want to get some things straight about what's in development. You know, that conversation has come up as well. What's in development and what's not. And he keeps on saying, you know, Supergirl and Lanterns is the only thing in development right now, and Peacemaker 2, of course, and Superman is in post-production. And I'll explain to you why, and if it was me, I wouldn't even have anything but Superman in development. We'll get there. But he is going to recast Wonder Woman. He is still, he is developing a Wonder Woman universe for the DCU. And it starts with, the streaming show on Max, Paradise Lost, which should be a very interesting show. We will see if that sees the light of day, because and we'll get to that conversation in a moment, but if you don't have a successful Superman, you don't have anything. Nothing else. They're going to have the embarrassing situation of having to put out Lanterns and put out Supergirl. It'd be interesting if Supergirl's a success and Superman isn't. Don't be surprised if that's the case. We will see. Anyway, so he's definitely going to recast Wonder Woman. He was always going to recast Wonder Woman. And anyone surprised about that, shouldn't be. First of all, let's go back to the subject I covered last week, where Connie Nielsen was angry that they cancelled Wonder Woman 3. They didn't greenlight it at DC Studios. Wonder Woman 3 would have been Patty Jenkins' sequel for Wonder Woman 84. Wonder Woman 84 is a very bad comic book movie. You cannot allow a sequel to come out on that. You can't allow this woman to spend 200 million or whatever she would have to spend. A director who can't direct action in a comic book movie. A woman who isn't a particularly great blockbuster, comic book director. And as I've said before, she was merely a second unit director for the first superior Wonder Woman movie. That's a fact as well. So there's that. But once you cancel Wonder Woman 3, then, the question of who's going to be Wonder Woman in the DCU comes up. I think it's the best thing for everyone if Gal moves on. If Gal is no longer Wonder Woman. It's good for her, because she isn't going to be Zack Snyder's Wonder Woman, the Wonder Woman we all loved. He's going to change her. She's not going to be that Wonder Woman. He's going to pick a certain moment from comic book history and, develop that Wonder Woman. So you need a new actor, right? So he will cast a new Wonder Woman. I'm not sure who you can cast as Wonder Woman. I don't think it, look, there's a few fan casts. There's always fan casts. There's always people's wish fulfillments on who they should cast as a certain character. But right now, I don't know who can play Wonder Woman, but I'm sure there's plenty of young actors out there, female actors out there, who could play a great Wonder Woman. But make no mistake, he's going to recast her. And again, he's put his foot in it by not being honest from the very beginning, being too timid and scared to say, look, Gal is a great Wonder Woman, but going forward, we're going to cast somebody else. I never understood what the delay in being honest about this was. He came out straight away, had a conversation with Henry Cavill, told him that he wasn't his Superman. He never had a conversation with Ben, because Ben had decided not to be Batman anyway. As far as I know, wouldn't it be a turnaround if he announces Ben Affleck's still being Batman? That would be crazy. Unlikely, impossible, but you never know in this game and in this industry. What's going on with Batman, I have no idea. Still wouldn't surprise me if Robert Pattinson actually becomes the DCU's Batman. Watch this space for that. But I'm surprised he didn't just come out from the beginning and be honest and say, Gal Gadot isn't my Wonder Woman. Now, it's interesting. There are some confusing situations going on. You know, why? Why is it complicated with Gal? Why can't he just say she's not my Wonder Woman? So it's interesting what happens there. I mean, I will be the most shocked person in the room in DC fandom if he announces that Gal Gadot remains as Wonder Woman. Personally, as much as I love Gal as the character, I think we need to move on from Gal. I think, because he's going to change her. He's probably going to go different comic book era. So I think it would be right and proper to recast her. So I'm not upset that he cancelled Wonder Woman 3. I'm not upset that he's most probably going to recast Wonder Woman. I think it's a good decision. And I know people have different decisions about this. So I'm sure Snyder fans are saying it's wrong, boo James Gunn. But when I honestly think James is wrong for doing something, I will say it. In this instance, it was right to cancel Wonder Woman 3, and it is right to recast Wonder Woman. After all, it's a new universe. Now, we know that DCU is kind of a backdoor universe from the DCEU. So some of the castings will remain. Mostly the people that he cast. Now, Blue Beetle will remain Blue Beetle. The young actor who was cast, he didn't cast him. He will remain as Blue Beetle. I think there's an animated series that he will voice. Maybe we'll see him cameo in live action. I don't think we'll ever see a Blue Beetle 2. I think a Blue Beetle 2 would flop as hard, maybe harder than the first movie. I don't really think there's an audience for a Blue Beetle movie, unless you make a good one. And the last one wasn't a good movie. It was another Marvelized DC movie that simply didn't work. So, you know, people like Peacemaker that James cast. So, you know, John Cena remains Peacemaker. You know, his wife playing the character's name that I've forgotten, right? She continues in that role. He's not going to fire his own wife, is he? And she did well, you know, as that character. He's keeping Viola Davis as, you know, as that character as well. God, I'm forgetful today. I'm forgetting all the characters' names. Waller. Amanda Waller, yeah. You know, so she remains, you know, Viola Davis remains as Amanda Waller. Because it was a great casting, why would you change that? And so there's some people who will be remaining in their roles, and there's many people who will be recast. And then he's going to be adapting other DC characters that the DCEU didn't touch. That's if Superman, you know, is successful. So at the end of the day, it's my view that, you know, Gal Gadot is no longer Wonder Woman. It's my view that he will recast her. And it's interesting, he kind of came out the other day talking about what's in development and what's been greenlit, blah, 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 and putting people straight. And then yesterday, he decided, I think, to go onto Threads or Instagram, or maybe both, to clarify his comments. Interesting, he hasn't come out to clarify his comments about recasting Wonder Woman. So it looks like he is recasting Wonder Woman. If only you just spoke up with the truth, James, from the very beginning, because your enemies, you know, the people, you know, I don't like to call them cultists, but the die-hard Snyder stands then have all the evidence to call you a liar. And it doesn't look good on you. So you are going to recast her. You might as well just come out and be honest about it. But anyway, it's an interesting situation. So yeah, fans keep on asking James what's in development and what's not. Because fans don't understand how the industry works. You know, when something's greenlit, you know, there's a difference between developing a script to pitch, right? That's not greenlit. I did a video about the movie script I'm writing, Saving Judy Garland. That script has not been greenlit. My Saving Judy Garland script is in development. I haven't pitched it because it's not ready to pitch. Right, I could pitch the concept, but I haven't. It's not ready, it's in development. And it may never become a film. It's virtually maybe impossible for it to become a film, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to try and pitch it when it's done. But going back to this, so basically the projects that are in, you know, that are out there, you know, that are in development, that are greenlit, that are being produced, that are definite, well, definitely going to happen, because I mean, when you see that Batman was like shelved, anything can be shelved at any time. But I think if Superman is successful, you're definitely going to see lanterns. You'll probably see lanterns whether Superman is successful or not. And you're going to see Supergirl. They've started to cast lanterns, Supergirl. Those two projects are in full swing. So they're happening. They're being made. You know, in their minds, these things, you know, lanterns will air on Max, and Supergirl will be released in cinemas around the world, nationwide. So those two projects are happening. Peacemaker is in production. It is shooting. That is happening. Superman is in post-production. Definitely going to happen. We will see Superman, hopefully next July. Hopefully they don't move it or change it. We'll see about that. But, so those things are happening. The things that are not definite right now is Brave and the Bold. It has a director, but they're not developing anything. Nothing's moving with that project. Now, Paradise Lost has started to look at casting and things like that. So that's slowly trembling towards being a real thing. And we've heard that the young female Latina writer who adapted Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow is also writing a Teen Titans movie. Not sure how true that is. So that seems like a realistic production. But again, I think the Titans movie is something that's on the bubble, which means could happen, may not happen. That's a phrase they use for TV shows that might be cancelled or might not be cancelled. So I'd say that script could go either way. I would assume that she's earned that script, and maybe it's her pitch. We will see. But James Gunn seems to be a guy who wants to be in control creatively of everything he's doing for DC Studios, because ultimately, if anything doesn't work out with DCU, the buck stops with it. He'll lose his job. His reputation will be toast. He doesn't want that. As I said earlier, if it was me, I would never have greenlit Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow or Lanterns or I wouldn't have even announced the slate until I had the pre-ticket sales. The pre-release sales, you know, when they release the tickets before the movie's released, right? Then you know. Like Wicked. I've seen the movie Wicked. I thought it was terrible, but it's being, you know, I'm hearing it's going to make 100 grand opening, right, globally. That doesn't surprise me, even though I think it's bad and we didn't need a Wicked movie. There's only one Oz movie, and it's The Wizard of Oz starring Judy Garland. You know my obsession about that movie and Judy. But it's happening. It will make money because it's about a very famous musical. And so people will watch it whether it's crap or not. But anyway, we don't know. The studio at this moment in time don't know if James Gunn's Superman movie will be a mediocre hit, a flop, or a huge hit. Nobody knows. I know the stands keep on saying, oh my God, this is going to be the bestest thing ever, but we don't know. Nobody knows. You don't know? I don't know. Nobody knows, right? We simply don't know. So I think it's very dangerous or overconfident or confidence in what you're doing to start greenlighting stuff, developing stuff, and actually announcing a slate. He announced a slate. I think this was the mistake they did with the DCEU as well. They should have waited film by film. What you do is, you can have a plan privately, right? You can keep it a secret. So what you do is, you just work a movie at a time. So Man of Steel comes out, and we didn't know what was coming straight after Man of Steel. But then there was, I think it was at San Diego Comic-Con that Zack announced, with all hyperbole and huge excitement that Batman vs Superman was happening. But they took their time, then they announced that movie. But then they started to run before they could walk. All of a sudden we were getting 2 or 3 Justice League movies, we were getting a Cyborg movie. They announced a slate. That was a big mistake. They should have done Batman vs Superman, kept their plans secret. They should not have gone into production of a Justice League movie while, Batman vs Superman was just releasing. They should have waited to see how BVS would do. Zack and the studio knew that even though I feel BVS is a great movie, that it wouldn't be for everyone. They know. They must have known. If they didn't know that it was going to be a divisive movie, they're bloody stupid. Because it's obvious just seeing the opening of that movie that it's not going to be for everyone. Anyway, so they made those mistakes, and I believe the DCU, James Gunn and Peter Safran, are making the same mistakes. If you just announce Superman, wait for those tickets to go on sale, then you know whether this movie is going to do well or not. Now, you would think we haven't had a solo Superman film. We've had BVS, we've had Justice League and all of that. But we haven't had a solo Superman movie since Man of Steel, which was back in 2013, so that's over 10 years ago. I mean, we've had to wait longer. We've had bigger gaps before. So it's probably the smallest gap we've had for quite a while in between Superman movies. That's interesting as well. Have people had enough rest of Superman? Personally, I can't get enough of Superman ever. I'm a huge Superman fan, as you all know. But, you know, because it's such a blind leading the blind, because nobody knows how this Superman movie is going to do, you would think that a Superman movie, look, if Man of Steel made nearly 700 million, you would think there's an audience out there for Superman, right? I mean, Superman Returns made just under 400 million, which wasn't great. Wasn't great at all, but there was an audience for it, not a big audience for it, unfortunately. I think that's on the movie, not on the character, but they always blame Superman when his movies failed, and it's the people behind the scenes creatively to blame if a film doesn't do well. We spoke about Joker Folle and Doi earlier. The reason that movie, you know, isn't making money because the general audience rejected a comic book movie musical and a movie that has a character that doesn't want to be Joker anymore. Even though I think it's consistent from the first movie and the second movie. And Todd Phillips was quite honest from the beginning back in 2019. I'm only calling it Joker so people can come and watch it. So basically Joker from the beginning was, you know, a bait and switch. It was. But he was honest about it. He wasn't lying. You know, you can go back and read the man's quotes. But, you know, nobody knows how this film's going to do financially. So I'm surprised that they announced a slate. Because all you have to do is look at the mistakes of the DCEU. And as much as I loved the early DCEU, they made mistakes. And their mistake was announcing a slate that they couldn't fulfill. Because originally they were just going to do a solo Superman sequel after MOS. Already, they were changing the plan. The Krypton series was supposed to be a Zod and Jor-El prequel set on the planet Krypton. A movie starring Russell Crowe and Michael Shannon. That's what it was going to be. Written by David S. Goyer. Maybe Goyer was even going to direct that movie as well. And I would have been up for that. But their plans were changing all the time. And when you announce a slate and your movies start to be divisive and not make the money the studio wanted, then they start changing the plans. And then the slate has to change. But in the public's mind, you know, you couldn't run a piss up in a brewery. You couldn't bring sandwiches to a picnic. Once you start changing things, once you start reacting to your movies not making the money you wanted them to. For example, right, they decided because Man of Steel made just shy of 700 million, the Superman was the problem and they needed Batman. That's why Batman versus Superman exists. And I'm glad that it exists, by the way. Let's not get it twisted. But, you know, also, you know, when the public see you changing your slate all of a sudden, and, you know, all of a sudden your director steps down in Justice League. None of that had to happen if you worked movie by movie. I personally think, listen, Kevin Feige had an idea, right? He had a franchise in mind. He kept on making movies. Iron Man 2 happened straight after Iron Man. I don't know if they waited to see how Iron Man did. I think they did. Actually, I think the MCU originally waited to see if Iron Man 1 was successful. It was. So they went to, you know, they decided to make a sequel. That's how they worked in the early days. And it was right. And that's how the DCEU, that's the one lesson they didn't take from Marvel Studios. The early, successful, clever Marvel Studios. And it looks like James Gunn and Peter Safran are not taking those lessons. I mean, don't forget, James Gunn worked side by side with Kevin. Did you not learn anything? So, for me, if it was me, and I was James Gunn, and the studio would have said, let's release this Superman movie, let's let it breathe in the box office, let's hope it does well. Now, James, you do your slate privately, don't announce it. And once, hopefully, if and when that movie is successful, then we'll confirm your slate to the public. That's what I would have done. What I wouldn't have done without people, you know, knowing what the movie is, I wouldn't have announced the slate. Because DC fandom is divided. The general audience is divided on Superman and DC. There's people who love Snyder. Then there's the other people who loved Henry Cavill's Superman. They've seen Henry Cavill treated like shit. There's a good chance members of the general audience could boycott this Superman movie in support of Henry Cavill. Not Snyder fans, Henry Cavill Superman fans, because there is a huge difference, boys and girls. So we don't know if this film will be successful. I'm not saying it's not. But if you think a bunch of stans on the internet saying it's the best, it's going to be the bestest ever, proves anything, you are wrong. I have an issue with stans. And I'll tell you why I have an issue with stans. And stans are different to fans. Stans have no objectivity when it comes to the thing they support and love. So that's why there's a difference between a James Gunn stan and a James Gunn admirer and fan. I admire James Gunn as a writer-director. I don't think he's made a bad comic book movie yet. And I include Peacemaker in that. I haven't been disappointed or upset or triggered by any of his CBMs. He's done a very good job. And yes, the Suicide Squad wasn't successful. And I'm not going to sit here continuing to make excuses for that. We all know the circumstances why that movie wasn't successful. You can spin it as much as you want. But I still think the Suicide Squad is a great movie. Some think it's the best DCEU movie. I don't think it's close to being the best DCEU movie. But it's a very good film. So James Gunn, as far as I'm concerned, creatively hasn't failed with a CBM yet. So his record's great. So you would imagine there's a good chance he makes a really good to great Superman movie, and he's developing, at the very least, an interesting comic book universe, right? And I know I've criticised him before, and I know I've spoken about red flags, every kind of doubt that I have on James Gunn with what he's doing here stands. But I also have things I'm excited about. I also got the other side of me that thinks, this could work. But there's that other side of me that's thinking, yeah, is he going to kill Superman off at the end of this movie? That's bad. You know, as I've said before, it wouldn't surprise me if Connor Kent picks up the Superman mantle at the end of the movie. It would be an absolute disaster if Supergirl takes up the Superman mantle at the end of James Gunn's Superman movie. But I've always had the hunch that he's going to kill the character off. So you can have things you have issues with, and then you can have things that you're confident in the man about. And that's the thing. But for me, to repeat the mistake of the DCEU, that green-lit stuff before they knew how well each movie was going to do. As I say, while BVS was in cinemas being released, they were working on Justice League. They should have let the release of BVS breathe, see what it made. It made just under 900 million, but the reviews and the fan reaction and the general audience reaction was divisive. So as a studio, but then from BVS, they'd already were making and made David Ayer's Suicide Squad movie. And then because of the reaction of BVS, because they were in the middle of making that movie, they had Jeff Johns rewrite that movie. And poor David Ayer had to go and reshoot that movie. But if they said to David Ayer, wait, let's wait for BVS to be released, let it breathe, then you make your movie. Because they're greedy. And at the time they wanted to do an MCU and have 2 or 3 or maybe even 4 DC movies out a year. They were rushing. Studios have become a conveyor belt these days, and that's the problem. And the conveyor belt mentality, when a studio is desperate, like WB and Zaslav right now, is a problem. Nothing should have been announced. You can work on a slate. You can decide what the slate's going to be, but you don't have to tell the public until Superman is released. So James Gunn and DC Studios and Warner Brothers Discovery and David Zaslav have taken a very big risk of announcing a slate and putting in development and into production Lanterns and Supergirl. Because it's going to be like, you know, the dog wagging its tail slightly when it's done a doo-doo in your kitchen. If Superman flops, and I love Superman and I love DC, and I mean this wholeheartedly, I will be devastated if that film fails, if the DCU fails. It doesn't matter that I'm angry about the treatment of Henry Cavill or the treatment of Snyder. I want Gunn to succeed because I love DC, and it breaks my heart when anything DC shat on by anyone, right? Or when it fails and people enjoy that failure, like Joker Follett and Dwar. It hurts me that that film failed. It hurts me that people like Nerd Roddick and the rest of them are shitting on that movie and ignoring what the film was, what the story was in 2019. And the story was, the sequel was consistent with the story Phillips was telling back in 2019. So it hurts me when people shit on DC. And I don't care if that's DC fans shitting on DC or anything. I want DC to be successful. So I want Superman to be successful, but I think it's a mistake to announce slates before your first movie, your current movie, the movie you're going to release next, is released. I want Hollywood to think about this in franchise entertainment. Make your movie, let it release, let it breathe, and if it's made what you've wanted it to make, then announce your next plan. One day, I'm going to press this and it's going to switch off straight away. Oh dear, because I don't edit my videos because I can't be bothered. Should we try again? See you later.